Hello everybody, welcome back into the Color Gemstone Academy. I am your instructor Paul DC, and this is my YouTube channel, Paul DC Gemstones. And this is our Q&A series. This is episode 31 of the Q&A series. This is my favorite. This is when I get to, your comments and your questions, and yes, sometimes even your complaints, and I answer them for you here. And remember, if you've not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. It's completely free, but it really does help me out. All right, let's get right into it this week. And the first one is from Wanda Lee's Cologne. Hope I'm saying that name right. And her question comes from, or his, I'm not sure what a Wanda Lee's is, from episode 66, Praise You Light, and says, thank you for gifting this information. I have one question. Can Light be used in an engagement ring? If the sun can change its color, is it safe to use every day? This is a fantastic question, Wandalise. And let's get to first things first. Yes, you can definitely wear it as an engagement ring. In fact, I love when people use color in engagement rings, colored gemstones, not just the traditional diamonds. In fact, my wife Judy, her engagement ring is a sapphire. So the next part of your question, is it safe to wear? Because if the sun can change its color. So basically when I went to that lesson 31 on Praise Light, I talked about how we were in Brazil. We were at a factory where they were cutting some citrine and some Praise Light. And then we went on top of a ladder. I'll try and put a picture in there if I can find it, where Judy was filming just tons of this Praise Light rough that was on the rooftop. And that's how they were heating it. And it just, spent about 3 months in there. Whenever they thought the color was right, they were done. So in my other lessons, I talk about how do you evaluate what is the stability of a gemstone. So what's the stability of a gemstone? Well, stability is how does it react to light, heat, and chemicals? Well, obviously you know about many gems being heated, and that's actually how they improve the color of some of those gems. Sapphires is an example of that. Citrine would be another example of that. There are a bunch of them. Then there's some others that are affected by light. And something like kunzite, even if it's in direct sunlight, it can fade over time with prolonged exposure to that sunlight. But in this case, I wouldn't worry about that, and here's why. It wasn't just being exposed to sunlight that changed the color of that quartz that is called Praise Light. Basically, it was on a roof between the high temperature of where we were in Brazil, plus the tin roof on which it was sitting there. It's probably a very, very high temperature over a long period of time, and that's why it changed color. And once it changes that color, the quartz is relatively stable. So just simply wearing your Praise Light engagement ring in sunlight isn't really going to much affect that. So I hope that is really, I'm looking to make sure I got all of your question answered here. So yeah, it's not going to affect its color after that. So you can definitely be, and it'd be a good choice. It's such a unique color, is that Praise Light. So thank you for that question. All right, moving on to number 2 this week. You guys had some great questions this week. DJD, who runs a fine arts and bindery studio, and he was actually way back watching episode 8, Sleeping Beauty Turquoise. And he says, I don't know how this stumbled on my autoplay videos, but I'm glad it did. Funny enough, I'm a full-time professional artist and bookbinder, and I own 2 tubes of Sleeping Beauty Turquoise, genuine watercolor paint by Daniel Smith. That company was probably the biggest reason the price got driven up so fast of the Sleeping Beauty, because Daniel Smith Paint Company was buying up every last gram they could. Well, they also got caught fibbing a little bit about the paint line that they make that is called Primatech, which is made from, quote, pure minerals and semi-precious stones. But They are filled with fillers and other pigments to make the color consistent. Long story short, I have my own line of professional artist-grade handmade watercolors, and I found a person I trust, have known for a decade, and have an official certificate of authenticity with 2 pounds of Sleeping Beauty turquoise that is unstabilized. So I bought it all, and I've been making my own Sleeping Beauty turquoise watercolor, and it's all pure and very, very, very gorgeous, and a dream to paint with. Every time uh, I would make 3 batches of it, mix all 3 batches together, and it would all sell out in a day. Couldn't believe it, so I kept 7 ounces aside just for me, and that's all that is left and not for sale. Anyways, have a good one. Okay, so first of all, a lot to unpack there on that one. And first of all, DJ, thank you for finding the channel. I'm glad you found it. And thank you for becoming a faithful watcher. You brought up a bunch of great points about, first let me get into the aspects of the culture and the history of Native Americans and turquoise. Now obviously we identify turquoise in the American Southwest as a Native American stone. It was important to them in all walks of life, including they would grind some up and make it into paint for whether it was a war ceremony or a festive ceremony. They would paint their face or their body, and yes, it can be used for paint, and that's a really great point. The other great point that you brought up is what happens when a gem becomes very popular. Judy and I, my wife Judy, and I were the last people to ever film the Sleeping Beauty mine, and it was shortly before it closed in 2012. I was actually interviewing the leaseholder. His name is Monty Nichols, and when we shot the video, and I said, hey, listen, this has become really popular, the shopping channel where I'm selling it. I'd like to make a really big deal about it. And this was, I think, November before the June that it closed down. And he said to me, do you know how many buckets we pulled out of the mine in November? And I said, I have no idea. He said 2 buckets. Now, when they talk about buckets, of these white paint buckets that are 5-gallon buckets, and 2 buckets of that is nothing. It doesn't even pay the bills for the mine. So the mine closed, never to be open again. But I was shocked, just like you were. I was shocked that after it closed, I saw more Sleeping Beauty turquoise coming out of the woodwork than I'd ever seen in the 10 years previous. And that's obviously impossible to happen. So it seems to happen when the price goes up and something becomes scarce. All of a sudden, people, the charlatans, the fakes, come out of the woodwork. And a lot of stuff that was being sold was not genuine Sleeping Beauty turquoise. So I can sympathize with you. In fact, I know for a fact that some of the stuff that was being sold back then was plastic. So I always say this, that you really need to know your source and trust your source when you're going to buy Sleeping Beauty. Just like DJ said, somebody that he had known for a decade in the business. But anyway, thank you so much for a great, great comment, and I hope you will give us more content in the future with great questions. By the way, I'm looking to the side because I use my computer to read the questions that you sent in. And by the way, DJ, I wish you great success with your art studio and your bindery. This next one, I hope I'm saying the name right. It's spelled O-U-M-A-R, but I'm going to call it Omar Diaby. From episode 48, Garnet 101, says, thanks, Paul, for the lesson on the garnets, but I have a variety of corundum, almost 120 kilograms with a lot of gem quality, but I do not know their identity. And I assume you mean by identity the geographic location. I would like to send you a video for you to see them. Maybe you can help me to identify them. Okay, great comment, Omar, or Almar. This is one of the great challenges that we face in the gem business. So first of all, let me say this. The Gemological Institute of America frowns upon us making any site IDs, whether it's just picking up a stone and looking at it, or looking at a video of rough like you're talking about, they frown on us making what they call a site ID. I mean, just looking at something and saying, oh, this is sapphire. There's a lot of things that can look like a sapphire that aren't a sapphire. So I can't make that kind of promise that I can look at your video and see that. Good news is there's a number of ways that you can get it tested. You can go to a laboratory and get your gem tested to see, is it in fact corundum. They can do some relatively easy, relatively inexpensive testing to do that. Now, saying exactly where a stone came from is a little bit more difficult, and in some cases it's even impossible to determine. Really, the truth is, a lot of Sleeping Beauty that is being sold as Sleeping Beauty, like a previous comment, didn't come from the Sleeping Beauty mine. I know for a fact that there's some Kingman turquoise. Now the guys at Kingman are really, really ethical. They're not going to sell their robin's egg blue Kingman turquoise as Sleeping Beauty, even though people would pay more money for it. They're saying, no, this is Kingman. It's a beautiful blue, and it's worth a lot of money. But I digress. So back to Omar. You may not be able to determine exactly where it came from. But if you have 124 kilos with a lot of gem grade sapphire, believe me, it's worth a lot. No matter where it came from, if it's gem grade and good color, it's going to be worth a lot of money. Now, if you could determine that some of that gem grade sapphire came from cashmere, well, that's a whole nother ballpark, a whole nother meaning, and a whole nother level of cost, because people pay more for that cornflower blue cashmere sapphire. But I suggest you get it tested. If you can prove that it's corundum, which is sapphire, that's great. But anyway, great question, and so let me know how you make out with that anyway. Okay, and just to prove that this is not just all ribbons and rainbows, as I said, sometimes people even had complaints, and I'm not going to shy away from those either. So this, I will make this the last one for this week. I don't know how long we've been going, but here's from Oscar Marin. I don't know why there's no hyphens, so Oscar Marin from episode 31, which was the Zoltanite, and says, I'm sorry, sir, but with all due respect, you ramble on and gave very little explanations that were almost all historical explanations. Disappointingly, lots of dots. No demonstration, lots of dots. Am I missing something, folks? Well, Oscar, first of all, and for everybody watching, whenever somebody says, with all due respect, usually the same thing that comes out is going to be basically saying how they don't respect you at all and they don't like you. I mean, seriously, that's true 100%. If you watch anybody saying, hey, with all due respect, usually it's because they disagree with you. So it's true. That's, to me, I find it true 100% of the time. And then it devolved from there, from all caps, yelling, and 6 question marks. But the good news for Oscar, I gave a very simple solution to his angst. And I said, nobody is required to watch my videos if you don't like them. So hopefully you can find another gem channel that you like better. And then we're all happy. So problem solved. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I try and do these, we've been traveling a lot lately, and right now we're in temporary living quarters until our home is built. So I want to thank you all again for watching. We try and do the question and answer series every Wednesday at 5 p.m. So I'll try and get better at this, but a lot of times it's, if we're traveling, we can't do it. But thank you so much. Remember, if you do like this channel, please share it with your friends and tell them to subscribe. It really helps me out. And I'll see you next week for the next lesson from the Colored Gemstone Academy. Thanks for watching, everybody.